What's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to go over 5 things that the A90 Toyota Supra does better than the all-new 2023 Nissan Z. So then, setting off in the Nissan Z, what does the Supra do better? Before I get into it, keep in mind a fully loaded Z is around $51,000. Fully loaded Supra is around $57,000. So there's a $6,000 price difference between the two top of the line cars, not even including the over $60,000 carbon fiber edition Supra, which is kind of just the carbon fiber trim pieces. So keep that in mind when you're listening to this video. $6,000 doesn't exactly just grow on trees. It's a nice chunk of change. Number one is power. Now, this is not a slow car. It seems like everybody watched the one video where the Z got gapped a car length or two by the Mustang and Supra, and they think this is slow. Those cars are very quick, so this is only a little bit slower than it. Now, with that said, like I said, it's not a slow car. It's fun to drive. It's an extremely smooth power band. However, the Supra is rated at less power. This is rated at 400 horsepower. It's a smooth delivery, but it's just not quite as much. When you're in the Supra, you noticeably feel that extra push in it. It is an impressive engine. The BMW B58 has been just an insane engine since we've seen it in the Supra, and it really made people wake up and realize how much power can come out of a small 3-liter 6-cylinder with only one turbo. So the Supra just has an engine that exceeded all expectations. It is severely underrated and is just an amazing engine. This is a really nicely balanced power plant. You know, just a kind of a basic twin turbo V6. It's not a GTR engine. Just some people say it's like a mini GTR engine. No, that GTR engine is something very special. The B58 is a very special engine as well. This, like I said, it is plenty quick. I don't need more power in it. I do like the fact that it is extremely smooth in the power delivery. I think the Supra can be a little bit too much power down low and be not as refined as this, but at the end of the day, it feels faster than this car. Again though, I mean, you get to 80 without thinking about it in this car. But at the end of the day, if you're going to race the two cars, the Supra's faster, and faster's better, so we like speed. I'm excited to see what this car does when it's tuned and modified, see if those cars can compete a little bit better. And I think this could be even a more drivable car once all tuned up, because it's such a smooth power delivery. The Supra, my car that I had, way too much torque. It spun the tires all the time, kind of useless to floor it, especially in lower RPM. This car might be a better blend once tuned. So once I get mine and I tune it up, I'll of course talk about that. But stock for stock, Supra's got some power. Number 2 on the list is handling. Power and handling are kind of the most important things in a sports car. Now, it's not that this car doesn't handle well. We took it to the mountains. It was really fun. However, you instantly notice that when you do this in this car, there's some body roll. The car flexes a little bit side to side. The suspension is just too soft. I really, really wish that Nissan put in an adaptive suspension. And when you hit the sport mode button here, I wish it did something. The sport mode, all it really does is make it, when you're in automatic mode, shift a little bit quicker. Throttle response is slightly better. Doesn't really do much. I wish when I hit sport mode there, it tightened up the dampers to give it that firmer feeling. Normal driving, this is just as comfortable as the Supra when the Supra's in normal mode. But when you put the Supra into sport mode, the suspension stiffens up to where you can start feeling bumps. And then when you're on the racetrack and in the mountains, it is so flat. I think both cars have a very equally as stiff chassis. The chassis doesn't seem to flex in this car, but just turning it like that, it takes a second for it to get settled. Once you're in a turn, like a long sweeper, it's nice and firm. It handles really well. Like it does handle nicely, but if it was stiffer, it'd be a much more pinpointy car. It's pretty pinpointy, but the Supra, honestly, it exceeds expectations, like I've already mentioned, with the handling. One of the best cars I've ever driven around turns. It's just so good in the turns. This car just, it needs an upgraded suspension. The Nissan GTR has been out just as long as the 370, so I feel like they had the resources to throw in the dampers from the GTR. They're just Bilstein dampers with a plug sticking out. I don't know why they couldn't do that in this car. Like right there, it's good, but it could be better. We need a stiffer suspension option. So number 3 on the list has to do with the automatics. Now, I talked about the manuals in my other video showing what the Z is better at. When you look at the automatics though, the Supra is better. The ZF 8-speed, again, is one of the best torque converter automatics out there. Personally, I'm not a fan of torque converters. I got bored with my Supra with the torque converter. It just, I don't know, a dual clutch to me is the only way to go for an automatic, or just get a stick shift. This one, I've heard people say it's derived from Mercedes. If so, I'm a little disappointed in Mercedes. It's not a bad transmission, like I've already kind of mentioned with the car. It shifts pretty quick. It's very smooth when you're normally driving. I just noticed at slow speeds, sometimes a torque converter seems to take just an extra split second for the pressure to build to engage. It's very, very minimally noticeable. I think the Supra kind of does the same thing. All the reason why I don't like torque converters. But the shifting itself, when you get to the higher RPM and are actually ready to make a gear change, it seems like you have to anticipate it just a little bit. I've hit the rev limiter several times in this car. I'd say when you shift, it's gonna go another 300 RPM until it shifts. In the Supra, as soon as you hit that paddle, you're into the next gear. It is impressive how quick the ZF shifts. So this one, I've noticed I'm wanting to shift right about at 7. When I shift, it'll then shift just that millisecond later, hit the rev limiter and kind of do something. So the automatic is all right. I think if you're buying this in an automatic, you're probably not going to be ripping on it as hard as if you were to buy it in a manual. So you probably aren't going to really notice the differences comparing this transmission to the ZF 8-speed. If you're a true enthusiast, get the manual. It is going to be an amazing transmission in this car, especially judging by the 370Zs that I personally owned years ago. The downshifts, it doesn't rev match the same as the ZF too. When you hit the downshift, it feels more like a torque converter downshifting. The ZF, it just is insane. So the automatic transmission, I'm not the biggest fan of. Like I said, it's good enough, but you know, the ZF is definitely taking the cake. So number 4 on the list is going to be the interior refinements. Now in my other video I talked about how this is a much more spacious interior, way more cargo area, way more storage solutions, and it's a better view out, much better visibility. The Supra, pretty compromised on visibility and storage. However, when you drive the Supra, you can tell you're in a German car, quite honestly. Of course, me driving hundreds of cars, if I drive an American car, they all feel the same. Every Chevy, Ford, Dodge, they have that sense of, I guess, interior quality that feels the same. All the Japanese cars feel the same too. A Honda, Toyota, Nissan, they all feel the same. Because the Supra is a BMW, it feels like you're driving a BMW or a Mercedes or an Audi. There's that extra special feeling of refinement when you're in a German car. It's hard to describe it in words, but if you've driven one and really thought about the car while you drive it, you know they feel way nicer than the other automakers. The Germans just have that refinement factor, and the Supra has that. That was a really big plus when I bought the car, and why I liked the BMW intervention with that car, because it just feels like an extra step up in refinement that you would find in an expensive German car. This car doesn't feel bad though. This thing surprised me comparing it to the 370, and it actually is really comfortable and quiet in here. The 370 is a little noisy. You can tell it's not refined. This is pretty darn refined, especially for a Japanese sports car, and this did really, really impress me with the ride quality, just how quiet it is. On the highway, you can talk at a reasonable level with your passenger, put the windows down. You know, there's no wind buffeting that the Toyota obviously has, but this is a really comfortable and refined car. But if you don't care about the $6,000 price difference, if you want that extra refinement, a German car, of course, is better because it's a top-tier luxury brand, and the Supra has that, which is a cool touch in a half Japanese, half German sports car. So then number 5 on the list kind of relates back to the suspension issue, but number 5 on the list is all the drive modes. So like I said, the drive mode in this doesn't really do anything. There's nothing adaptive in this. The steering, the suspension, the exhaust sound, the engine sound, it's all the same throughout any mode you're in. The manual transmission Z, all you get is a rev match button. In the Supra, the drive modes are really cool. You get suspension can be adjusted. There's 2 ways. 2 different steering settings. The exhaust will get louder, the engine tone gets louder, the exhaust pops happen. I feel like there's so much room in this car to modify it on the aftermarket, and I feel like they could have done some drive modes that actually do something. Give us an exhaust that, you know, wakes up. When you press sport mode, let the exhaust valve open, give us more noise, give us more drama. Let's hear some turbo sound stock. Let's have the steering tighten up when you're in sport mode. Let's have the suspension tighten up when you're in sport mode. You know, I love cars that have drive modes because you can truly use the car so much. This car is really well rounded on both spectrums, when you look at the performance, and then when you look at the luxuries. But when you look at this Supra, it toned down, pretty much feels like this as far as comfort and everything. But then you can press one button and everything stiffens up and it becomes a much better car. This car, you're going to be left with just the fixed solutions. You're not really going to be able to change the steering. It is what it is. I don't have any issues with the steering. It's been normal around town and perfectly fine in the mountains. The suspension though on this car, obviously like I already mentioned, if we can press a button, that'd be really cool. And like I said, there's no real extra drama with this car. It's going to need modifications day one. The Supra was a car, out of the box, it really had the best of everything. This car just kind of lacks those drive modes, and that's probably the biggest reasons why this is $6,000 cheaper. It's because it doesn't have those active things. And again, if you're not concerned about price, you don't care either way, you're just going to buy one that is better in certain regards. The Supra is going to be able to do the performance things better just because it has all the active stuff in it. So with all that said, the 5 things that the Supra does better, it doesn't mean this is a bad car. When you look at the pricing, I think it's justifiable. You know, $6,000. If you take $6,000 in mods, I think this will absolutely demolish a stock Supra. And then if you put $6,000 in mods in the Supra, it's now still $6,000 more. So if you put $12,000 in mods in this and $6,000 in mods in the Supra, to where they both cost, around $70,000, this car is going to destroy it. I am really excited to see these things all souped up. So I think because these cars cost a different amount, a pretty significant amount different, I think it makes it to where both cars are equal at the end of the day because they give something completely different, and they still give you a fun sports car, but the price makes up for the lack of features for performance that the Z offers. So that's kind of my takeaway on it. The Supra, it's one heck of a good benchmark car, and I think Nissan kind of just gave you a more affordable option. This car seems like a cheaper, more affordable version of a Supra. Not cheaper in a sense of crappier, it's a great car. Just, this is a more budget-friendly version of the Supra, and overall is a pretty fun car. So anyways, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next video.